double the time, they still have not adduced evidence that even placed my client on the scene. And further, the virtual complainant that they put on the stand gave evidence that it was clear that he was not being truthful, that he was lying to the court, and the medical evidence clearly showed that his scenario of events as it happened could not be the way that it happened. Specifically, the evidence he gave about his beating about the body and kicked in his stomach and all of that. Several doctors examined him. Not one of the doctors them saw any evidence of any injury to his person with regards to that, other than the bullet to his foot. Other than that, the medical evidence showed that even though there was a fracture of his leg, it was not a displaced fracture in that the bones never separated. So therefore, that is indicative of a bullet that was fired from a distance of 8 feet or more. This is inconsistent with what he gave evidence that my client held on to his foot and shot him in his foot. But quite separate and apart from that, the reason that the case collapsed was because there was no identification evidence that placed my client on the scene. And they could bring no circumstantial evidence to create that nexus between my client and the person that they described that shot him that night. Because that report was made since before 5 o'clock, and there was no police on the scene, according to the prosecution witnesses, until between 6:30 and 7 o'clock after the shooting had occurred. And it could have been prevented. So I would like to see, coming out from that police realize that, you can't put the pressure on civilians to maintain peace and protect life in circumstances like this. In the case of domestic violence, I'm sympathetic to the police in that it was, we had just had a volcanic eruption, and they must have been very busy dealing with the security for the shelters and all of that. But generally, I think that a better response time to the report of issues of domestic violence, that the police need to work on that. The prosecutor that they brought here prosecuted this case in a way that I've never seen before. He viciously prosecuted this case. He could have almost, compared to prosecuting the case, he tried to shut us down at every length that they don't want them to see the sort of the character evidence of Mr. John, to see his history of past violence against women. And they tried everything within their arsenal to try to prevent the court from seeing the sort of character that we are dealing with. The man who's painting himself as a man of God. The same man who his wife said that he said he's going to sacrifice her head and her blood and her children and her grandchildren to the devil. So one has to wonder, who is his God from the evidence? And these are the sort of statements that this man is making. And persons are there in support of this man who is claiming that he's going to sacrifice a human life to the devil and then go and call himself a godly man. It's amazing. But he's supported by someone who has their political agenda. They've lost favor apparently with their party. They've lost the election. They've been removed from their position as senator, and they're now trying to use this now to gain some sort of political relevance. But the law is the law, and the facts are the facts, and I'm very happy as to the way that things turned out today.